Good day, my friends, and welcome to Unity Through Past Traumas. What you can't do alone, we can do together by sharing our life stories. I'm your host, Jeffrey Saunders in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And on today's episode from Ontario, Canada, I have on a beautiful young lady who's here bringing a ray of light of hope into this world to help another through her past of pain and suffering. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming on. Very grateful for you to come on and share about your life story. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'll share a little bit about your background before we get started. Elizabeth grew up in a small town in Ontario with big dreams of one day becoming a French teacher. She completed her undergraduate degree at the University of Waterloo and her Bachelor of Education. Throughout her undergrad studies, she lived and studied abroad in both France and Quebec. In the last 6 years have been more than challenging, with one blow after the next. It all started with the sudden and unexpected loss of her mother when Elizabeth was 21, followed by a breakup with her fiance 3 months before her wedding, leaving her with crippling anxiety and then a sexual assault within the first few weeks of her new school year. Elizabeth has had her share of hardships, battles, and obstacles to overcome. Although it has not been easy, she is a true believer in writing out the emotions and confronting them head on, the good, the bad, and the ugly. She finds peace in sharing her story and trying to help those who have suffered in similar hardships. Absolutely beautiful and wonderful. Love it.
Yes.
Love it, love it. So before we get started here, if you want to just give your name, your age, we know where you live now, but just a little bit about yourself with where you're at today.
Yeah, so Mademoiselle Elizabeth Ann is actually sort of my author name. Because I'm an educator, I chose to go this route. So Elizabeth Ann is kind of, just my author name, but nonetheless, I'm 28 years old, living in a little town outside of Toronto. Recently, I just finally got my dream job. I finally got a permanent teaching position, so full-time teaching French and business at the school that I've been at this last year. So I'm like beyond excited. I'm super grateful. I always felt like this school was my home. So when I got that call that I finally got a permanent position, which in the teaching world is crucial, it was just like a major sigh of relief. So I know I kind of started off the year saying, 2020 is going to be my year. And now we're kind of experiencing all this COVID and everything, and people are really down. But I just was like, you know what? I said this is going to be my year. It may not be the most ideal situation, but I'm just going to roll with it. So now I got the job. I got my book coming out with Golden Brick Road Publishing.
Nice,
so as negative as some other people are feeling right now, I'm totally feeling the energy. I'm feeling the positivity. So I'm kind of just prepping for the school year in the fall, vamping up some publishing or marketing with the book, and that's kind of where I'm at right now, just experiencing some personal growth, just having some time to love myself again, appreciate myself, and just see where the next couple months take me.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And even to have a job teaching, are they bringing students back? Is that the plan?
We don't know at this point.
Okay.
There's supposed to be an announcement August 4th. So I'm trying not to stress about it too much because it's kind of out of my hands. But thankfully, I'm a relatively healthy person, so I don't have to be too afraid of like some other people may have to. But just trying to stay positive, and whatever happens will happen, and I'll just ride the waves.
But that's so awesome that you got your job now. And then things will always work out. They always do. Whichever way they're meant to, it's going to work out, and it's a very beautiful thing. So congratulations on your job there.
Thank you.
And then even a little bit more deeper, having your book. So if you want to share a little bit about your book that's coming out in October.
Yep. So I am a co-author in She's No Longer Silent. That is being published by Golden Brick Road Publishing House. So I write a chapter specifically about my sexual assault, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes, I'm sure. So You know, I can't dive into too many details, but my purpose for wanting to write this chapter was to really shed some light on the topic. You know, it's not always an easy thing to do. There's a lot of women and men even that are too afraid to come forward and share their story. So I kind of take all of my hardship. I mean, I don't wish it upon anyone. So my hope was that, you know, sharing my story, putting some resources out there, giving some hope that, you know, it's not easy, but we need to start working in a momentum that,
Yeah.
you know, these people are held accountable for their actions and survivors can get the healing that they need. So if I can even inspire one person that reads my chapter, then for me, that's, you know, the icing on the cake.
Yeah, you gave me goosebumps now. So I work the same way. If I can help just one person from something that I'm doing, then
Mm-hmm.
you know, anything else above that is a bonus. But
Exactly.
knowing you made a difference in one person's life is the most beautiful thing ever. You made a huge impact, and
Yeah.
you're already doing it. And even doing this podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sharing your story. It's
Mm-hmm.
healing for us to share our story. You know, you get
Yep.
healing out of it, and then someone else is being healed from your strength,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
yeah, and I'm a firm believer in, like, you know, everything happens for a reason. And you know, like you mentioned, like, I really truly believe that we need to sort of face everything head on, whether it's good, whether it's bad, because, you know, in the past, if I've dwelled on the negative too much, then I just find myself in a place that I don't want to be. So for me, it's, you know, releasing all that and just seeing the good in everything and helping others is what really brings me comfort.
yeah, it's very, I'm with you. I'm on the same boat. We're on the two peas in the pod.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
so I guess if you want to start off, you know, just sharing about your childhood, how that was for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I grew up in a really small town. I was trying to think how many people there were, but I'd probably get it wrong. So it was, you know, typical small town in Ontario. I had the opportunity, and I'm quite grateful for it, that my mom was a stay-at-home mom. So she stayed at home for 11 years. I have an older brother, so as soon as he was born, and she stayed at home up until I went into kindergarten. So, you know, I really, looking back now, and especially since I've lost her, you know, just the fact that she was able to be there for me and my brother, you know, I really see the value in, you know, all that she was able to teach me. You know, having that love of your mother is, you know, important, and you know, not everyone has that. So, yeah, I mean, I played baseball. I was always fairly relatively good student, you know, kind of shy, you know. I really have no complaints. It was, I feel very fortunate to have had a really good upbringing and lots of family close by that I've, you know, bonded really well with. You know, I have cousins that are 6 months younger than me that are like my sisters, and, you know, all my family is relatively close, and our
Nice.
family's slowly growing, you know, with babies and spouses. And so,
Yeah. Those are definitely things to really, you know, feel grateful about, because like you said, a lot of people, you know, they never had parents to lean on.
mm-hmm.
Right. And the
Yeah.
same as you, my mother is my rock in my life, who has helped me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to always have really good morals and values and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I really got from my mother.
Mm-hmm. And I know, like, growing up, everyone would always be like, oh, you know, you look so much like your mother, or you're just like, you're the same person. You know, back then when I was
Yeah.
younger, it's like, oh, stop it, like, that's
Yeah.
annoying, I don't want to hear that. But, you know, after
Yeah.
having, like, you know, after her death, it's like, you know what,
Yeah.
like, why did I always question people saying that? Like, it's an honor. You know, every time, like, an old friend of hers sees me, you know, it brings up good memories. And, you know, I try to live my life the way she did. You know, she was
Yeah.
always caring for others, helping others. So
Yeah.
I truly feel like she's like my spirit that just, you know, pushes me forward in everything that I do. So
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
super grateful for her.
that's a beautiful thing when you have that connection of feeling and knowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That she is there helping you. And, you know, it's a great gift to have that alignment for yourself to know that,
Oh,
because
for sure.
it's truth of what you're saying. It's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely true. So again, you're
Yeah.
giving me goosebumps right now. It's a beautiful feeling
Yeah.
to have that. So I guess, you know, as you share now about, for other people who have experienced loss, and unfortunately, like, I haven't had this experience yet, and I know it's just absolutely horrible for, you know, when you're 21 losing your mother. and how that affected your life. So for people, you know, this is also, it will be in the description, but, you know, this is very trigger warning with my show, with the things we talk about. So people, you know, please pay attention. If it's too much for you, then tune out for now and then come back later if you feel about it, feel like it. But, you know, so if you want to share about the loss and how it made you feel and what you went through during the time when you lost your mother.
So it was definitely totally unexpected, and I was actually in the process of getting ready to move to France for the year. So, you know, I have definitely a lot of guilt feelings because, you know, I was in my relationship at the time, and, you know, being that 18-year-old girl, like, oh, you know, my life was him and everything, you know, nothing else really mattered at that point. But so yeah, she had sort of an unexpected heart attack. They were able to revive her, and she lived for like 9 days in hospital, but had suffered too much brain damage. So the positive of her death, which, you know, listening to that, like, how could something positive come out of someone dying, is the fact that she was actually an organ donor. So she saved like 4 or 5 people's life, even though she died. So I've been in contact with the lady that has her lungs. You know, it's just, yeah, it was devastating. I mean, like I said, I was in university, ready to embark on this big adventure. I know she was super excited for me. She was also, you know, typical mother, was like worried and kind of sad to see me go. And then, you know, like 3 weeks before I was leaving, you know, I woke up to my dad screaming my name to come run, and there she was, right? So, I mean, one thing I do thank her for is, you know, oftentimes when we suffer trauma, we get those memories or those dreams that kind of, you know, you replay what happened. And to this day, I've not had any sort of, not recollection, but I've never had a nightmare, or I've never had a dream that I was reliving that experience. And I truly believe, you know, she knew that was enough for me already. So, like, you know, because I think I felt pretty much every emotion possible. I mean, at first you're in shock. You know, all these people are coming into your house trying to revive your mom, and you're just kind of standing there like, you know, what should I be doing right now? And of course, you know, the cops were talking to us, the paramedics, everyone, you know, trying to get her to life. So there's that like shock. You know, I was calling people to tell them, and they had no idea what I was saying because I wasn't making any sense, right? It's just like you're in this state of, is this actually happening right now, or is this a dream? Not gonna lie, like, there were days, especially after she died, you know, just contemplating life in general, you know, like, why did this happen to me? I feel like I'm a pretty giving, nice person, so like, why could anyone do this to me? Like, why me? So for a while I was very angry, right? Probably put a lot of anger towards people that I shouldn't have. But, you know, I really believe in like the stages of grief. I mean, I'm not trained in this field, but, you know, you go through the anger, you go through the heartache, you go through the sadness, the depression, the anxiety, and it definitely was like a life changer, right? You know, it was just my dad and I and her in the house, and now with her gone, I sort of stepped up and sort of took over her role. So, you know, I was trying to finish, you know, I obviously didn't go to France, so I was trying to juggle doing part-time studies and help my dad around the house. And we had literally just started a kitchen renovation. So like our house was a disaster. So, you know, sitting in the living room eating our dinner because we had no kitchen cabinets or, you know, so it was just like, I look back and I don't know how I survived. But I am here right now. So, you know, I really, truly believe if we suffer loss, trauma, like, it is so important that we seek professional help. You know, I went through that phase of, you know what, I don't need anyone's help. I'm a strong person. I got this. You know, for a 21-year-old to say that, maybe a little, you know, maybe a little far-fetched, but, you know, I was just like, you know what, I've tried this on my own. I've tried to deal with it. I'm clearly not in a headspace where I want to be. So, you know, I reached out for counseling. And
so how long did you wait for the reaching out? How long did you wait for that? Like to feel that you could do it on your own? For other people out there, you know, losing their parent, they suffer typically, not typically, but a lot of people will suffer their whole life in this grief they don't know how to come out of. So what, for you to reach out for help, what happened there for you to make that?
So I would say, so yeah, it happened late August, and then I started school. So I'd say probably like the fall, like October, November-ish, you know, especially with Christmas coming. You know, the firsts are always the hardest, you know, first Christmas without them, first birthday without them.
Sure.
You know, I just got to that point where I couldn't really keep track of my thoughts. Like, again, you just go through the emotions of I'm angry one day and then I'm sad one day. And I was just like, this isn't healthy for me. You know, I'm not treating people the way I normally would, and it just wasn't sitting well with me. So I think within the first 5 months I had reached out.
Okay.
And I think it's important as well, you know, the first place I went to was not a good fit. You know, so I went in, had a session with her, and I actually came out bawling. I'm like, I thought I should feel better after coming out of a session. So I was like, okay, this is the first time I've done this. I'll give her another chance. Went again, had the same feeling of, you know, this, I just don't think we really connect as well as we should. So then I kind of went, yeah. I was like, you know, I want to benefit from this. And, you know, sometimes we as people just don't have that connection. So I went somewhere else and got hooked up with a lady that I felt that connection with. And that was who I ended up going with. So, you know, and I worked with her. So I was 21 at the time, and I probably worked with her for like a good 2-3 years. You know, I mean, I wouldn't go every week per se. I went a lot at first, and then, you know, would kind of do like a monthly checkup or, you know, the other issue with counseling is benefits, right? Not everyone has access to benefits through work, and I was using those through my dad's work. So, I mean, I only had so many sessions covered. So you also have to look at that factor as well. So I can understand for people that don't have those resources, it makes it just that one step harder, because financially it can be quite a burden to get that professional help. So I think, you know, one of the points in my book is that I give people resources on like where you should call. You know, I give websites, and I mean the whole book in general, we have I think it's at the end, there's like a alphabetized list of resources that people can reach out to. Beautiful. So, you know, there really is a lot out there for people. It's just knowing where to find it. So that was kind of our purpose in doing the book, and for me as well. So
and a few things, you know, that stood out, because for myself as well, you know, I spent 25 years in and out of therapy, and I always promote therapy because we need to get out those feelings, or we cannot heal once we start for our healing process. But like you said, finding the right counselor or therapist, whatever you're connecting with someone else to help you, it's so important to feel the connection with them, because you will not feel, we don't feel open enough to share, especially when they're not aligning to you and you're leaving feeling worse. I mean, yes, when we first go to start sharing, you know, and opening up, it's always going to be emotional and hard, right?
And uncomfortable.
And uncomfortable. And then it should ease up after that. But if it's not, you know, and you feel that something is off, then we need to start looking out for another therapist, right? Another thing you said, you know, with the counseling for people as well, if we, and you probably know this already now, but services from the government, there are always going to be free services in different ways, group therapy sessions, different ways for people to reach out to find, you know, I've done that as well, using free services, because like you said, you were very blessed to get typically if you're paying more, you're going to get a therapist that is more in depth, right? But it doesn't matter, because at least you're doing something. Even with the free services, they're still skilled, right? So
and it's funny because growing up, you know, you would do those career cruising classes for school, and it was like psychologists would always come up as number one for me. So it's funny because I just feel like I love to listen to people. You know, I never judge, like, and that was why I wanted to come forward with this, is to be that someone, you know, like, even if they're in the, you know, halfway across Canada, even if I could just talk to them on a Zoom call for like 10 minutes, just anything, right? Just, I think it's really important that, you know, there are, like you said, there's so many resources out there, but sometimes just having someone a bit different, you know, makes a difference. Sorry, my cat.
I have ADHD and I'm like, oh, there's a kitty. I see a kitty. She's adorable, or he.
She.
Oh, she. Yes.
Sorry.
My ADHD will just
we can edit that out.
No, I leave everything. I
Okay.
try, you know, I always try to be professional and good where I don't need to edit things and be real, because with me, it's about being real. You know, these things happen and pop up and I leave it because, you know, I just like, I like trying to be real. So, you know, after you did all that work and grieving and going through all that, where do you feel that you're at now after doing the work with reaching for outside help over your mother's passing?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, there are days, you know, sometimes like a song will come on when I'm driving, or, you know, I see a picture of her I haven't seen in a while, and, you know, I have my moments where I just break down. But I mean, like I said, I always try to believe that everything happens for a reason. You know, I was thinking back a couple days ago, you know, suffering a loss, like, again, how could that be a good thing? Like, we never want to lose anyone in our life. But it's just a matter of putting things in perspective. I mean, obviously I miss her, and there's things in my life that she won't physically be here with me for. But I mean, I keep reminding myself, like, I could have went down a totally different path in life, you know. I could have dropped out of university and, you know, got addicted to drugs, or, you know, just really fall down this rabbit hole of, you know, maybe self-pity, or just letting the grief and anger consume me. So I think counseling had a lot to do with that.
And why is that for yourself? Why do you feel that made a huge impact?
The counseling?
Yeah.
Again, yeah, just like, you know, having that sort of neutral person that knows nothing about you. You know, sometimes when you talk to family or friends, they know your past. They know things about you that, you know, a counselor doesn't know. They're just helping you based on what you say. So just that being able to get your feelings out and sharing them, like, there's no bias there, right? Like, they will respond based on what you say. You know, they don't know that this happened in your life, or that, you know, you suffered this at one point. It's just, you're in the now, and they can respond to that. So I'm thinking I didn't answer your question.
No,
but...
you did. No, you did.
Okay.
The reason why I asked, and the reason why, because you briefly mentioned it earlier, but I just, for people who are still suffering, I want them to understand the importance, without me always ranting on about seeking outside help, you know, for your view on why, you know, it was important for you and how it helped you. So others who are still suffering, who might not have reached out for help yet, who are still suffering, they can understand the importance, right,
And then
of seeing someone.
And I mean, moving forward, like, you know, once we start talking about my assault again,
Yeah.
so I did my counseling for the grief.
Yeah.
You know, like 6 years later, boom, another trauma.
Yeah.
And again, that, like, okay, I cannot do this on my own. I'm reaching out for help. So, you know, sometimes you may only need to go once in your life. Sometimes, you know, you might find it helpful to go frequently. Sometimes you may just go when traumatic things happen. It really, everyone's different. And it's just sort of being self-aware and knowing, you know, okay, what can I deal with and feel good about, versus, okay, my life's a mess right now. I'm about to break down. I need help.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So as we move on to your next battle that you had to deal with, unfortunately, and, you know, we've all experienced this on our own level in our own ways. You know, breakups were always hard for me in my life. You know, it was really hard, but you went through one just right after. If you want to give information.
So, you know, typical high school sweetheart, was totally in love. You know, we graduated, started our post-secondary careers in school. And, you know, I think it was 2015, you know, we went on a trip, and totally unexpected, he proposed. I mean, sometimes I think I'm like an old soul living in a young person's body. You know, I really believe in, you know, I always kind of envision for myself, you know, like, okay, I'm going to finish school, and then I'll get married, then I'll have kids, and then, you know, I'll have my dream job, and manage family life. Like that's always been one of my biggest goals, is to have that. So, I was in this mindset of, this is amazing. I'm in love. He proposed to me now. This is like my dream. I had my dream ring. Everything was coming together. We had set a date for 2017. Ironically, it was the same wedding anniversary as his parents, and they split. So looking back now, it's like, maybe that was, maybe there was some, sort of spiritual stuff going on back there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, I was in teachers college then. So I was coming back and forth from up north. It was about a 4-hour drive, trying to build connections in the schools around where I live, because, this is where I wanted to establish myself, and
Yeah.
it's all about making connections. So I was actually living with him temporarily because he was close to what school I was teaching at. And it was like the most random thing. One day, his phone was going off, and one thing led to another, and there was this other girl. So, me being sort of naive was like, okay, well, we're going to get married. So, nothing will become of this. We'll get through this. We love each other. But that obviously wasn't the case. So just that feeling of being cheated on, I was in like the most important time of my life, finishing teachers college. Like this was it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I look back, and I think I even talked to the teacher I was working with. I'm like, I am so grateful you passed me, because I do not feel like I gave my teaching with you my all, because I was just so, sidetracked with my personal life. And I mean, I never tried to bring that into the school, because teaching is really, you need to separate work and personal life. So just like that feeling of I'm not good enough. I was busy trying to establish myself, and my so-called lover was off with some other
This is just
girl.
3 months before your wedding. This is right
And
before
3
your
months
wedding.
before our wedding. So like money was paid, there was down payments, like I had my dress.
Yeah.
Everything was slowly coming together. And then it was, okay, well, first, let's just postpone it. I think we rushed it. And then like a couple weeks later,
Horrible.
we talk, he breaks up with me, and that's that. So, it was interesting because after it happened, like I had graduated, I finished school, and, was applying for jobs, and I was fortunate. One of his grandmas actually took me to Portugal with her, because I just found like, so many people were coming at me like, Stacy, are you okay? Sorry, pop my real name in there.
Oh.
Are you okay? Like, what's going on? What happened? What happened? And it was just, that feeling of like, people are just coming at you from all directions, and you just, like, I was hurt, obviously. Like, I thought this guy was the love of my life. Like I said, I was in that mindset of, I'm getting married. Like, this is everything I've ever wanted. And now, like, it's literally, he just pulled the carpet out from under me, right? And I was like,
Yes.
flat on my butt. Like,
yeah.
Like, how do you cope with that?
So then with what you were going through then mentally and emotionally, how was that for you at that time after, when it ended like that for you?
So it's funny and kind of ironic, because my anxiety sort of started about a year before my mom passed, but I was sort of managing it okay. And then as time went on, my mom died. Obviously that had an impact, but I was just finding that my relationship was actually causing me anxiety. There was just this expectation of, like, he was very outgoing. Not that I'm not outgoing, but it was just like all these expectations of, we got to go, we got to do this, like it was just overwhelming. And as soon as we broke up, it was almost like I just had this like rock lifted off my shoulders. It was like I wasn't experiencing the same anxiety. Like I felt like I could breathe again. So it sort of foreshadows into like my idea of, if a relationship, or if someone is causing you mental health, anxiety, depression, like you need to get out of that situation. I've been in other relationships sort of similar, since then. I look at everything as a learning opportunity, but really, if your mental health is being affected, like you really have to stand up for yourself and put yourself first. I mean, you can love someone, but if you're not following the same path, you know, you're just better off to take care of yourself first, and then who knows, maybe down the road it'll work out. If not, then it wasn't meant to be. So just overcoming that idea, and I mean, I still suffer with it today, just, you know, well, I wasn't good enough, you know, like I was trying to do good for myself and my life and establish myself as a teacher, but like I wasn't around enough, so he went elsewhere. And this other person, you know, it's like the saying, the grass is greener on the other side. It's like,
Yeah.
well, is it really? Because, you know, if he would have just waited it out a couple weeks, you
But you
know,
were
if we would have,
feeling, but in that relationship though, you're saying you were feeling anxiety and it was causing you stress being in the relationship anyways,
yeah, so it was kind
right?
of like my subconscious, like I didn't want to accept the fact that it was, but
Yes.
then
Yeah.
when it ended, it was like, oh, okay, I
Yeah.
should have realized that sooner.
And then, well, no, because it's our learning. We're learning and
Oh
growing,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I
And
guess
it's
that's
not,
true.
and it's not beating ourselves up over this stuff. It's what did we
Yeah.
learn from it? And what I've heard you talk about or say already is the red flag. So in that relationship, we know red flags come because of how we feel, and it's the
Mm-hmm.
things and experiences we've been in the past. So you've
Mm-hmm.
learned and took away great things and grew, because now those red flags and new relationships you're catching on to right away. So you don't need
Mm-hmm.
to relive those same
Right.
experiences, which is a beautiful gift as
Mm-hmm.
a new person comes into your life.
Mm-hmm.
So did you do any counseling after that for yourself, or
Yeah, so I
that time?
believe
Yeah.
I was still kind of working with the same woman that I had been with my mom.
Okay.
Um, because obviously, when you go for counseling, for one thing, you know, like I went in for grief about the loss of my mom, but
Yeah.
sometimes other aspects of your life sort of chime in, right? So,
Yep.
like you said, mention red flags. There were things, um, you know, that happened that looking back now, it's like, wow, that was really not okay, especially
Yes.
given the circumstances. Like, what was I thinking? But now, again, like you said, I
Yes.
know, okay,
Yes.
if you're being prioritized lesser than what, you know, you should be, like something, um, you know, like not being there for a visitation, for example, like the one time I need you the most to support me, you know, wasn't there.
Yeah.
And just other little things throughout the years that a lot of my family members would pick up on. And, you know, you're kind of in denial because, you know, you think love will trump all and everyone's
Yes.
just
That's what
crazy. They don't know what they're talking about, right?
yeah, I know. I hear you.
Yeah.
I'm connecting with you.
Yeah.
So, after
So
getting through that, sorry.
I was gonna say, so I think I was still doing counseling at that point,
Okay.
but it just kind of refocused into, okay, being cheated on,
Yeah.
my self-worth being like pretty much
Mm.
at negative a million. How do I, you know, love myself again? How do
Rebuilding
I,
yourself.
yeah.
Yeah. And then that's the beautiful thing when we go through hard times. Like I have even a therapist now. I'll probably have one. And she's spiritually aligned with me. And it's a beautiful relationship I have
Mm-hmm.
to have that. Um, but to go, there is no shame. It's actually strength when we reach out for
Mm-hmm.
help, because now
Exactly.
you're not suffering. You've rebuilt yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of you reaching out for outside help. And it's so
Mm-hmm.
important for people to reach out.
Mm-hmm.
Because what do we gain? New tools and knowledge to help us
Mm-hmm.
on our path to grow, to not suffer, right? And that's
Mm-hmm. And
the
I
big,
think, yeah, as a society, like we're too afraid, you know, we think that there's like the stigma of, well, if I seek outside help, then I'm weak.
yeah.
You know, people are going to judge me, but I mean,
But they're
to
suffering
me,
now,
yeah,
right?
it's like if you just make that choice for yourself, I mean, who cares about what other people think, right? I mean,
Exactly.
I can say that. I mean, I have my moments when I do get caught up on what people say, but
Yeah.
you know, I try to live my life as, you know, if these people have something negative to say about me or judging me for something that I'm doing for myself, then should I really have them in my life?
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
right. Because we only what I don't even I forget the saying now about who you surround yourself with, right?
Mm-hmm.
With
Yeah.
where I'm at on my path today, I surround myself with people who are inspiring and uplifting people, who are helping
Mm-hmm.
people. These are the people. And
Yeah.
then when I have other people who enter or come into my life who are very negative, I feel the difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Yeah.
I keep my distance, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
family or whoever it might be. I have lots of love
Mm-hmm.
for them, but we
Yeah.
need to distance ourselves for our own well-being, right?
Mm-hmm.
So important.
100%.
Yeah. So as we move on to the, another hardship that you've went through, and again, she is, you're still needing to go to court. So, we can only speak on so much about it, but whatever you want to share that you're able to share on the sexual assault with what you went through.
So yeah, so I had known this person for about 5 years. And really all I will say about it is, people who pry on others' vulnerability, it's not good. I mean, I shared my whole life, we talked every time I'd see him, I shared things, sort of built a connection. He was in a professional, like he was the professional in the situation. So when the assault happened, like it was definitely not okay. But it was just the idea that, he pried on my vulnerability. He knew absolutely everything about me. He listened to me complain about exes or about the struggles I was dealing with, having lost my mom. Like he took advantage of me. I mean, I obviously went to him that day not thinking anything would happen because it never did in the past. But then when you're stuck in that moment and it happened, like it's just that shock. It's like, is this actually happening right now? Because I don't think what's happening is appropriate. And it's just like your mind just starts to wander. Like I remember, feeling my face just flush, like I just felt so hot. So again, I did what I needed to do. Again, I can't really go into too many details, but I was contemplating about coming forward or not. And I was talking with my mentor about it and explaining everything that happened, sort of behind the scenes, and then with what actually happened. And, it was just that idea of he preyed on your vulnerability. Like if he's done this to you, it's probably happened to someone else. So you kind of have to put those fears of being ostracized aside. It's obviously a very daunting process to go through. I know a lot of women and men don't have faith in the justice system. I mean, obviously COVID is stalling my process, so there's not much I can do about that. But, it's been almost 2 years now and I still don't have this resolved. So, so it happened. I seek the help that I needed, in terms of justice system. But then it was okay. It was like the second week of school. I just started at a new school. The first couple of weeks are always hard. You're trying to get to know those kids. They're trying to feel you out. And I just remember it was like a Tuesday. I was struggling. I was like at my lowest point. I was like, I cannot teach anymore. Like, this is what I've been dreaming of. I don't think I can handle this. So I reached out to my mentor. She's like, come to my house after work. Like, I want to talk to you. And, through talking, she's like, I think you should consider maybe taking like a stress leave or some time off of work. And that's what I ended up having to do. I mean, that's also another decision, right? Like, you have colleagues and students that you work with. And for me, it was like, well, if I leave, like I'm giving up on them, So it's that like idea of, I should be okay with this. Like I should just keep moving forward. Like I have to put that aside. Like I said, when you're teaching, like you need to put your personal life away because they will pick up on pretty much anything that you say and do.
Yeah.
So, that was a hard decision to make as well, right? Because I was like, should I be doing this? I'm not a permanent teacher. Like this could look bad on me later down the road, like all those, it was literally just, I was overwhelmed with feelings and emotions, like, again, I was angry, I was hurt, I was confused, I was terrified, he was going to show up at my door, just and.
Fear, a lot of fears, hey?
Yeah, so I seeked counseling for that as well, and the authorities that I worked with were honestly great. So I got hooked up with a counselor that actually deals with trauma and specifically sexual assault.
Yeah.
So I was grateful that like we connected right off the bat. I started seeing her right away. And again, though, my personal life kind of seeped in there because, you know, I was in a new relationship. And although I was dealing with the trauma of assault, so there was other things coming out as well that kind of instinctively kind of wove together. So, yeah, I mean, I just felt like because I got to the point where I was like, I cannot do my job anymore, you know, after working, you know, 6 years of university, and just to have that feeling of I give up,
Yeah.
like was something I had never experienced before. You know, I always try to be strong, be there for others, support them. But that was like sort of a new experience for me, you know, just saying, okay, you know what, like I'm tossing in the towel, like I'm done, I can't do this, I'm gonna have to figure something else out. But again, here I am. I
Yeah.
mean, I got the help that I needed. Um, you know, the things I was worried about, like my students, you know, they were so happy to have me back. And obviously there was only so much I could say to them, but just being in the right mental space myself just made going back so much more easy, right?
Yes.
If I would have just played it out and not taken time off, I probably would have been miserable
Yeah.
and probably would have
You wouldn't
really
have been your
suffered.
best. You wouldn't have been at your
Exactly.
full potential.
Yeah.
And, you know, as you go back to it, because I think this is very important for people who have been through sexual assault, and unfortunately, with me as well, as not saying or bringing up anyone from my past, but unfortunately, a lot of relationships I've had, and I'm not just talking about girlfriends, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of relationships that I've bonded with women throughout my life, you know, I would almost say about 70% for sure of the close relationships, they opened up to me about some form of sexual
Mm-hmm.
assault. It
Mm-hmm.
happens to a lot of women.
Yeah.
And, you know, it does happen to men as well, because even as a child with myself, I was molested by a babysitter. And I always
Mm-hmm.
felt that, but I was unsure until I got my connection with
Mm-hmm.
spirit to find out, yes, that's true, that I did
Mm-hmm.
have that. But, you know, what happens to men or to boys and men as well throughout life.
Mm-hmm.
But when that happened to you, and again, this is what I was going to say, that's very important for people to know
Mm-hmm.
who have had it and they haven't reached out for help. What fears at that time, what was going through your mind with fears of maybe who you couldn't tell or who you could tell? Like, what were you going through mentally as
Mm-hmm.
far as the fears that you were living with, that you were
Mm-hmm.
afraid to maybe start
Mm-hmm.
reaching out?
So right after it happened and I got back to my car, I obviously reached out to my boyfriend at the time and was just like, I think something just happened to me, but like I don't really know what to think right now. Obviously being female and, you know, having lost my mom, you know, I would have reached out to her. But then, you know, just being me and my dad, my brother was already, you know, he lives in Toronto and isn't with me as much, right? I was like, well, you know, how much do I tell my dad? Because I knew he would be upset, obviously, you know, like I'm his baby girl. But it was like, yeah, I mean, part of it is there's only so much I can say, right? Because I don't want anything to influence what happens. But, you know, there's only, at the time when it first happened, there was maybe only a handful of people that actually knew. So, you know, especially when I was off work, people were realizing it and they're like, well, what's going on? And it's just like, oh, I can't really talk about it. Like, can you just respect the fact? And, you know, then like I slowly started opening up a bit more. You know, I got connected with this book. And again, I was terrified. You know, I've always wanted to write, never really had an opportunity. And then this opportunity came up. But then that fear of, okay, well, what can I say? You know, like I don't want to damage any chance I have in court. So like I was petrified of actually writing and I was questioning whether I should be doing this book or not. So no, I had to reach out to like lawyers and just, you know, ask for anyone for help to be like, you know, can I do this? Like, is this a good idea? And again, so obviously I don't dive into like evidence, but
Mm,
the purpose of my chapter is, okay, this is how I dealt with it. This is what I encourage other women or men
yeah.
to do if they suffer the same trauma. Um, again, like just how can I help others? Like giving them resources, telling them what I did. So, I talk about journaling. As soon as it happened, I wrote everything down, didn't leave out
Okay.
any details. It's so important because especially now, 2 years later, I still haven't testified and I doubt myself. I'm like, did that actually happen? But thankfully, because I wrote it
Journaling.
down, I can go back and read my journal and be like, okay, yes, this is what happens. Stop doubting yourself. Um,
And that's so
Obviously.
powerful for people to know, as well as journaling, the power of writing out your feelings and
Mm-hmm,
emotions. It's another format to get your feelings and emotions out. And
mm-hmm,
luckily, like you just said, for you, this is helping you to not doubt things that happened in the past
mm-hmm,
because you have it all written out.
mm-hmm.
But before you connected with the police, did you have fears of people not believing you, maybe? Did you have fears
Oh, for
before you
sure.
reached out? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bit of a backstory with social media as well. So I felt like there was a lot at stake, obviously for him, but also for me, being the professional that I am. Um, I was scared, and obviously no one's read those journals.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, here, read this. It was more for
Yes. No.
my,
Yes.
more for
Yeah.
my benefit. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And then you've seen,
sometimes,
oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
yeah, sometimes it's just you need to reach out to someone because you don't know where to start. Like I didn't, well, actually, I did know someone that had suffered something similar, so she's been a good resource for me. But now I just feel so compelled to be that resource or that guide for someone else.
Yeah. So for others, who have had sexual assaults in the past, it's overcoming that fear that maybe someone won't believe you, right? It's
Mm-hmm,
overcoming these fears that are so important for us to overcome. Because
mm-hmm,
how was when you overcame the fears that you might have had or that you would have had during that time,
mm-hmm,
how was the response from all the police and everyone you connected with when you started sharing? How
mm-hmm.
was that after you
Oh,
overcame
like I was
support
super,
wise?
yeah, I was going to say I was super happy, but there was never one time when I felt like the police officer doubted me. She's like, please, I believe you. And again, I can't say much about it, but she's like, he was the professional. What he did was wrong, and I
Mm-hmm.
will never doubt you.
Yeah.
Um, Now, that being said, I talk about my chapter, like, whether it's loss or trauma, there's people out there that want to say, oh, well, my sexual assault was worse than yours, or, well, I lost my mother, so that's worse. I never do that.
Mm.
I truly believe everyone's experience is different, and my assault could have been a lot worse, and I'm grateful it wasn't. But it doesn't mean that we can't still support each other.
Yeah.
I know with sexual assault, there's always that stereotype of, well, it was probably because of something you were wearing, or, well, if you were flirting with him, well, then he thought you wanted it, or, that
Yeah.
crazy
Yeah.
nonsense that we tell ourselves sort of as a
Yes.
society, right? Like we always want to blame the victim. Um, and that's like something that I'm also trying to like push for people to realize, like,
Yeah.
regardless of circumstances, if boundaries are crossed, I don't care if what I was wearing was too provocative or if I said something, it doesn't matter. I was violated. I did not want it to happen.
Yeah.
So like, who are you to judge me and tell me that it's my fault? Sort of what I'm getting at there.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
talk about this in my book, right? And
Yes.
actually, sexual assault happens most often with someone we know, and not necessarily family, but just like could be friends or whoever,
Okay.
and they're the least likely to be reported.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of fell into that category of my assault falls under that, most common instance, but most people don't report it. And I share a graphic on my Instagram, of 1,000 assaults in Canada, there's only like 3 perpetrators that actually get held responsible.
Okay.
Um, so like the statistics are out there and it's shocking. So that's why I'm always trying to promote it,
Yep.
because it is scary. I'm not gonna lie. I have my moments, like I'll have a dream that I'm in court, and then I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm terrified.
Yep.
I mean, I worked with a victim witness program in my area. So like I have a liaison with someone that keeps me informed on what's going on. And, they're like, closer to trial, we're going to have you in, we're going to prep you, if you want to walk through the courthouse just so you can sort of lessen some of your anxiety. Like everyone that I've worked with, police, counselors, whoever it may be,
Yeah.
like I felt supported. And, at first I was like, well, it's been almost 2 years. Like I'm going to lose my strength. I'm going to lose my desire to want to fight this. But I think if anything, it's only making me stronger because it's giving me the time to really think about everything again,
Yeah.
to really reassure myself that I have done the right thing. I mean, we're seeing all these stories in the news with all the celebrities,
Yeah.
the Epstein and all that stuff. Like, I keep watching, like I like to research. I love to be informed about what's going on around me. And it's almost like fuel to like get me, to keep my sort of my passion to help others alive because, there's girls, there's women out there that, even if it happened 10 years ago, like they're still probably suffering.
Yeah.
And in cases like this, the sooner you report, the sooner you get help, the better it ends up playing out for you.
Yeah.
As soon as, they're going to try to tear me apart and make me seem like the bad guy,
Of course.
it's inevitable.
Yeah.
But the fact that I literally went to them right away, I had no hesitation. I didn't, contemplate, should I do this? I was like, nope, this was wrong. I'm going to do what I need to do. Like that's something they can't hold against me.
Yeah.
Like I'm serious. I'm not making this up. And I think that's another thing, right? There's that idea of women are afraid that people are going to tell them, oh, you're just saying that. That didn't actually happen.
Yeah. It's just more fear, that doubt, to keep us from reaching out. But the beautiful thing when we reach out like this, like with what you have done, it's all damaging no matter what for a person, just on different levels for them on the experience. And again, like you said, you can't compare the experience you had to someone else's because we're all shaped and formed in different ways. Our mind is conditioned throughout life in different ways. We handle things in different ways. But it is when the strength that you had to reach out and actually tell on him for what he did. There are a couple beautiful things from this. Well, there's a lot actually, but what you're doing is you're preventing him now from her doing it and damaging someone else. So that is stopping from happening. And typically, hurt people. So with him as well, something has been done to him and to his life to condition his mind to have that stored energy of hurt and pain with whatever was done to him. So for even other people who have done things to hurt people, and they know, and there are people that are watching because we've all done things in our lives we're not proud of and happy, but for the one specifically with sexual assault and whatnot, you need to reach out and get help for this stuff to heal your past. Like with what he did, there needs to be some accountability now for him, right? And then hopefully on his path, he can heal himself for whatever was done to him as well. Because, there are horrible things in our lives that happen to us that shape us, unfortunately. That stored energy that is a part of us will lash out further in life when we don't heal it. So, you're also helping him in return in a huge way to not, because he's going to have regrets in his life for the things that he's been doing. So you've actually helped him in a way to stop, to be hurting more people as well. Like there's so many beautiful things about people finding strength from within, not having fears of what people may think, right? So that you can grow and heal yourself, because you're the most important thing out of this whole, or not thing, but you're the most important person out of this right now to heal and grow. And you've done a beautiful job all throughout your life, right? With reaching out and doing help. And it's very inspiring. You're a very inspiring person. And I'm very, very grateful and blessed that you came on with me today to share all this information. So I thank you for that. And if there are two tidbits that you could give back to people who may be suffering in some way right now, who have not reached out, whether it would be for, when they lost a grief, what they need to do, and then again, perhaps with the sexual assault, something that you can give to help another.
So I think I would start by saying, like, you have to be selfish. And I mean selfish as in you need to have that self-love. You need to put your own needs first. because like I said, I just truly believe if we don't face something, if we decide to suppress feelings or we decide to suppress emotions, it's going to come back around when you least expect it. So just putting yourself first. And I think that also would tie in with, like if someone is not giving you good energy, like you need to just be polite and say, you know what, I can't have you in my space right now. But like no one else is going to advocate for you. And that's why I say you need to be selfish, because unless you share with someone else, which a lot of people don't, like who's going to be there for you, right? Like we have to be there for ourselves, because, unless someone's a mind reader, which I don't think anyone is, you're going to be left in that darkness, that confusion, that not knowing what to do next, not knowing how to live life, And I just think it just breaks my heart that there are people out there that do suffer because they don't know what to do. So that would be my one thing. My first piece is just, you have to be selfish in that respect. And I mean, second thing would just be, again, that idea that counseling is a bad thing or counseling makes you weak. If anything, it gives you strength. Like it bothers me when, if I'm talking to someone and I'm trying to help them through something, and, I'm always cautious about how I, say things, but I share my story of, okay, well, I found that seeing a counselor was really great. Would that be something that, maybe I could help you talk about or help you find someone? And, they just give you that look of like, like I'm too good for that, or that's not going to help me. Like, how is this person going to help my life? Right. So it's just an idea of we need to stop seeing getting counseling or seeking professional help as a bad thing, because it is not.
Yes.
I mean, we're not all trained, psychologists or psychiatrists. Like, we don't know. Our brain, I feel like, does not know how to process everything as, it could or should. So we need to stop putting that negative stigma of getting help, and just embracing it. Because I mean, most of the people I've talked to about the topic, they were skeptical, and then they sought help. They're like, you were right. Like, I was surprised. I mean, it wasn't what I expected, but like I'm in a better place now. So just being selfish, getting that help, like that's the first step. Acknowledging what happened, not trying to downplay it, not throwing it in the back of your mind for it to come up and bite you when you least expect it.
It
Like
will.
that's a huge, it will.
It will eventually, even in relationships, and that's the big thing. For people in relationships that haven't healed, if you never healed from any of these situations and challenges you've had in your life, they're going to come up in relationships of stored pain that you swept under the rug and never dealt with, and it's going to, come out in relationships. So, like you said, reaching out, not downplaying anything, and learning new tools and knowledge that you didn't have before, so how to process our healing, right? So we can heal. Yeah.
And I will say, like, after my marriage break, or it didn't happen, I found myself in a new relationship, and now I'm not in that relationship. So, I just really feel like I'm at that point in my life where, I definitely wasn't the greatest person. I didn't feel like myself. I feel like I didn't take that time to really heal from, the broken down engagement. And I kind of just jumped in. I mean, obviously I still do love and care for him. We just didn't work out. And now we both realize like, okay, we're not really growing together.
Yeah.
We'll always love each other, but we just need to sort of do our own things. So, it's just like, I can't advocate enough of just really listening to that gut, like that feeling in your gut. It's just so important that, sometimes you have to pull yourself out of the situation and do what's best for you.
Yes.
It's never easy ending a relationship. You always go through that trial of, oh, I really want them back, or I'm so sad. How am I going to get through this? But it's just all how you position your mindset. Getting that help again, just it's so, so important.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story.
Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. And then again, for people as well, your book, She Is No Longer Silent, will be out, and it's multiple authors, over a dozen for sure. I think there's what, 15 or 18 or something around there.
Yeah, so it's still in pre-order right now, but
off of
it will
Amazon.
be. Yeah, you can order it on Amazon, or you can get it through Golden Brick Road Publishing Company.
Okay.
And I'm sure I can give you some more information on that.
Yeah, so I will put the rest of the information and the details for people to look, and I'll have links so that you can pre-order the book. This is an amazing and beautiful book. I've already had another author, Katie Romagnolo. I've had her on sharing about her life story, and she's in this book as well. And hopefully I have other authors that will be on before this book comes out, right?
It is, I mean, I'm a little biased, but it is really powerful.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of women that are going to connect with it, and
for sure.
I hope they do. Like, that's the purpose of this
men
book,
and women. Men and women. Right. Because I've already connected with a few things, you know, of
okay, there you go.
Yeah. So it is for men and women. It's very inspiring. It's very uplifting, very educational. Anytime we're open and honest sharing about our life story with pain and suffering, the value of that is tremendous for what we can gain from one another when we're open and sharing it with our feelings and emotions, right?
And we're literally so many walks of life. Like, I'm a teacher. We have people that are in the Navy. We have coaches. We have, you know, we're just your average, you know, average person, but together we're powerful, right?
Yes. So thanks again for coming on. And again, for people who have watched, you know, please share the video, because it can definitely help someone that you don't realize within your family or friends who are suffering silently. And this, you know, can be very helpful for them to change their life. So thanks again for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for everyone who tuned in, who is watching this video or listening to this podcast. And bye for now.